Dr. Rebecca Homkes is a lecturer and faculty member at London Business School and has just written a book. Hey, can you push the book out through the door here? I can't believe I've written a book. I forgot I'm falling apart here, which I recommend to all of you. And we really wanted her to provide sort of an end cap for the day because we want to remind people of the strategy, particularly around uncertainty and taking advantage of uncertainty. So without any further delay, please welcome Rebecca to the Signal stage.
Wonderful, thank you, John, and hi, everybody. It is absolutely my pleasure to be joining you here at the end of what I know has been a very long day to speak about something I am super passionate about, which is growth and value creation. But what I'm really passionate about is breakthrough growth, and not value creation anytime, but in times of uncertainty. So that's what we're going to tackle. What does it mean to drive growth and value creation through uncertainty? Pre-warning, I'm going to pack a mini MBA into the next 15 minutes, okay? I need to start with the word uncertainty, because we are trying to lead companies in very uncertain times. And I get it. Some of you will argue, Rebecca, I've never run a company in certain times. I know. But there's something about these past couple of years with post-COVID and economic uncertainty and election uncertainty and ESG uncertainty. We're facing a lot of it. Here's the thing I noticed about the word uncertainty a long time ago, way before COVID. I want you to watch out for this for me. Whenever we say the word uncertainty, we tend to put a word before it that means it's going to be bad, right? We ask each other, how are we going to manage uncertainty? How are we going to overcome uncertainty? How are we going to get through uncertainty? We always set it up in conversation like it's nasty. We just have to manage through and get to the other side. So folks, I want to start by defining uncertainty. Ready? The definition of uncertainty is a series of future events which may or may not occur. Whether or not those events are good or bad depends on what we're trying to do and how we're set up. I'm going to repeat as I flip slides. The definition of uncertainty is a series of future events which may or may not occur. Whether or not those events are good or bad depends on what we're trying to do and how we're set up. But if you want to be great at this, you've got to acknowledge one thing quickly. We can't predict the future. I know that sounds silly. You're saying I know that. But in strategy, we surround ourselves with PowerPoint decks upon PowerPoint decks and data and charts and scenarios, and all of that data, we almost convince ourselves we can predict. We can't, but we don't have to. Here's the differentiator. How do we make great decisions, even though we can't make great predictions? But doing so involves making a shift. A difficult shift, perhaps, for some of us, but a necessary one. And that shift is from planning to preparing. I'm going to go so far as to say, should we call them strategic plans? Because the word plan frames our brain. Everything in this must happen. And I want this thing evolving and adjusting as I learn. Because in preparation mode, I'm making decisions based on beliefs. I'm not always waiting for facts. I'm acknowledging the variables are going to merge as I go, and I might need to set milestones rather than metrics. So I want to optimize my organizations for robustness, not just efficiency. But punchline, periods of uncertainty are a great time to grow. They're the best time to grow, and I'm not being silly. They are the best time to grow for so many reasons. The number one reason, it's the best time to learn. In times of uncertainty, your customers, your partners, your vendors, your employees, they are never clearer about what they want from you and what they need. Uncertainty is the best time to grow because it's the best time to learn. And organizations that learn faster grow faster. I'm going to repeat. Organizations that learn faster grow faster. Here's the other reason it's the best time to grow. Because something hasn't changed. And I want to pause on this. In all of the talk of new normal and everything's different and everything's changed, one very important thing to our conversation today has not. And that's the definition of what strategy is. What is the definition of strategy? An articulation of how we create value. And what is value creation? Our topic today. Value creation is driving the biggest gap possible between two things. On one hand, our customers and consumers, willingness to pay for our products, services, and solutions, and the other hand, our total cost of getting it to them. So when you think strategy, I want you to visualize those two needles you see on the slide. It's this simple. Value creation is about moving those two needles apart and keeping them apart over time. As silly as it seems to just move our hands apart, that anchor is powerful. I want us doing the few things that will fundamentally move these apart, not the thousands of things that might cause them to bounce. So value creation is moving these two needles apart. How? How do we do it? It's a 3-mode loop called survive, reset, thrive. The market's going to keep punching us. I can't stop that from happening, but I can build a business that can survive the punch. I'm going to reset because I change my strategy and growth plans as the situation changes. Then I can go back to thriving. Survive, reset, thrive is a loop, not a line. And guess what? Everything in breakthrough growth is a loop, not a line. If you want to lead growth strategies, you've got to leave behind linear planning cycles and embrace loop thinking. Growth is a loop, not a line. Now, here's the good news. Usually I make a crowd suffer through survive and reset first, because it's only if you do the hard work there do you get to thrive. But it's the end of the day, so I'm going to do you a favor and cut right to the thrive. And I've never done this before, so if you tell anyone else, I'm going to deny it, okay? So the number one question I get is, what does it look like to thrive? I want to be one of those organizations that consistently and successfully outperform everyone else. Now, if you read the management journals and the popular lexicon, there's one very consistent feedback. Be outside in, be market focused, external view. True, but incomplete. There's a more powerful differentiator, and it's internal. It's something I call internal predictability. It's not a super sexy phrase, but I like to call things what they are. Internal predictability means I can't predict the future, I can't change all of it, but I can prepare an organization to adapt and respond better than anyone else. And you've got it when you can answer yes to these 4 questions. Here they are. Everyone on my team can say yes to, I know what we're trying to achieve and why it matters. I know where critical decisions take place. I can rely on others to do what they say they will do, and when I do adapt, it's recognized and rewarded. I'm going to go through these 4. I want you to assess your team as I go through. In the end, we'll see how set up you are for internal predictability, okay? First one, I know what we're trying to achieve and why it matters. Here's why we're bad at this. Because we communicate strategy in big, complex, multi-page operational plans, and I get it. Your industry is getting more complex. Consumers are changing and retailers are changing. You've heard about it on the stage today, but guess what? Complexity is a really crap weapon against complexity. The only good weapon against complexity is simplicity, if for no other reason than this. Things that are complex, hard to understand. Things that are hard to understand, hard to remember. Things that aren't remembered aren't done. So if you want a fighting chance of something being executed, it's got to be simple, or it won't be remembered, understood, and done. I want you to think of the song Happy Birthday. If I started singing Happy Birthday right now, you would all join me in a second. Why? Simple tune, basic melody, we can all hum it together. For a growth strategy, it's 2 things. Where are we going to be at the end of these 3 years? How are we going to get there? What is success? What are our top priorities? What is success? What are our top priorities? Happy Birthday is boring. We've sung it thousands, if not millions of times in our life, but we know it. Resist the urge to get creative. Be Happy Birthday. Now, I work with a lot of the big tech companies. One of them a couple years ago told me, great news, we have Happy Birthday. We have only 5 strategic objectives, which I thought was great news until I dug in and said, guys, you don't have Happy Birthday, you have Bach. And the reason I told them they had Bach was this. They weren't lying. They did have 5 priorities, but they also had, please bear with me, 3 key transformation initiatives, 4 customer service priorities, 5 core beliefs, 8 roles, 9 values, 20 promises to stakeholders, and 120 key performance indicators, which may or may not have been related to bonus. They weren't quite sure, okay? This is not going to get you a yes on the first question. The second reason the first question is hard is because it's never done. We're leaders. We like checking it off and saying done. Communication does not equal understanding. Communicating the growth strategy does not build understanding. It's that constant talking. What matters, why it matters, and how things are going. Question 1, I know we're trying to achieve and why it matters. Question 2, I know where critical decisions take place, which means we've got to talk about agility. Now, agility, like value creation, is something we have buzzworded to death. So we're going to have to define that too. What is the definition of agility? Making good decisions quickly, aligned with strategy. Why is that definition important? Because every year a couple CEOs come to me and say, Rebecca, this year we're not going to do strategy because we want to be more agile. True. And I say, love the enthusiasm. The problem is the definition of agility is making good decisions quickly, aligned with strategy. Agility without strategy has a name. It's called chaos, right? If we want to be agile, it demands a value-creating strategy. 2 ways to do it, very cost-effective. The first, when we get bigger as organizations, we bring process and bureaucracy for slowing us down. There's a simpler thing. We haven't codified decision-making rights. That is, in our growth strategy, what are the critical, repeatable decisions for growth? Do we know where decision-making rights lie? Because if I'm a leader executing the market, I see a value-creating opportunity, now I want to grab it. Do I get to make that call? I probably ask my boss, who asks her boss. It ends up on the meeting, but that meeting agenda was full, so we punt it to another meeting, we make another PowerPoint. By the time we make a decision, it's too late. What are the critical, repeatable decisions for growth? Example, one of my favorite ones. I also get to work with lots of sport teams, including Formula One. You think your industry changes fast. In Formula One, a second makes a difference. Here's what one of the teams did. They codified decision-making rights by the physical location of the car. If the car was in the factory, it was the head of operations. When the car was in transit to the race, it was the head of the race team. When the car is in the garage, it's the head of race strategy. Race engineering. The car's on the track, it's the head of race strategy. What does that mean? When the car leaves the garage and goes onto the pit lane, decision-making rights have transferred from the head of race engineering to the head of race strategy. So if something goes wrong, and it's Formula One, it always will. We don't fumble, we don't call a meeting, we all look exactly at the individual who owns decision-making rights, and he or she says what we're going to do or the help that they need. Now, you don't have just one Formula One car, but you do have critical, repeatable decisions for growth. I need you to codify those decision-making rights. That was 2. I know where decisions take place. Number 3, I can rely on people to do what they say they will do, because this is how we execute. We have processes and lines of reports and SLAs, but in a fast-moving company like P&G, we execute by making commitments. We commit to our boss and our team and our vendors and our partners, and they commit back to us. And in thriving organizations, these commitments have teeth, which means if there's a commitment in the system, I know it's going to get done. And in organizations I work with where things are slow or hard or just everything feels difficult, I'm not sure these things are going to get done. Now, I've asked this question now to over 500 companies, 12,000 senior leaders. And the question is, how much can you rely on this person to do what he or she says she will do? All of the time, most of the time, some of the time, rarely or never. Here's the results. Good news first. Vertical alignment's working pretty well. When I rely on my boss or direct reports, I can rely on them all or most of the time, over 80% of the time. But look at that last bar. Flip it the other way. 12,000 senior leaders have said 95% of the time, I've got a commitment coming in from a colleague in another business unit. I'm not completely sure it's going to get done. Now, there's good reasons for this. It's not malice. It's not ill will. We mean to do these things. We're busy. But here's the problem. What do you do when you can't rely on commitments? Think about it. What do you do when you can't rely on commitments? I know what I do. I do it myself, right? It's easier. It's done. We duplicate. We compensate. We task it to 2 teams. We escalate. We set up an update meeting or a review meeting or send a tracker, or we build a tracker to track the trackers. True story. A chemical company in Europe does that. We do all of these super dysfunctional things to build reliability. Imagine you spend an hour a week doing any of these things. Most will spend much more. Tell me how many FTEs P&G employs just to follow up on stuff. This is why the Thrive companies are doing so well, because reliability happens, and look at that last bar. That's what's really happening when reliability is low. Reliability gives you adaptability. I want to repeat, reliability gives you adaptability. When those web of commitments going across the organization work, your mind share is freed to grab all of those growth opportunities. When you're bogged down in that, you let a lot of them go. Reliability gives you adaptability. And finally, when people do all this stuff, do we recognize and reward it? When people on your team grab a value-creating opportunity, they do something different because there was a bigger growth opportunity here, do they get the shout-outs? Or do we recognize and reward employees who work hard and hit their numbers? Because if we don't recognize and reward people who really spot, identify, and grab value creation, they're not going to do it. But they've got to stay within their boundaries. Last point, folks. The most important thing in a growth strategy is not the goal. It's the boundaries. Boundaries are the most important thing we can give our teams. The boundaries are the parameters of the non-negotiables we're putting around our team and saying, as you're running towards that goal, don't break the boundaries. And here's why they matter. Boundaries give us freedom. I want to repeat. Boundaries give us freedom. When we tell our teams where their boundaries are, we've empowered them to use all of the space possible up to, but not over the boundaries. So those were our 4. Let's go through them again. Be grading yourselves. Can everyone on your team say yes? I know we're trying to achieve and why it matters. I know where critical decisions take place. I can rely on others to do what they say they will do, and when I do adapt, it's recognized and rewarded. If so, great news. You're well on your way to building a thriving organization. If not, we've got some work to do, and for that, I wish you good luck. And I will leave that and say thank you and hand the stage back to John.